Hello and welcome to World News here on TVP World. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. Brussels is hosting a significant meeting of the EU Foreign Affairs Council on Tuesday, bringing together top leaders to discuss crucial security and foreign policy issues. Now, the meeting, which will be chaired by EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, will include separate sessions for EU defense and foreign affairs ministers. Now, in the morning, defense ministers will focus on EU military support for Ukraine, following an exchange with Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. They'll also discuss the implementation of the White Paper for Europe defense, aiming to boost readiness by 2030. Later on, foreign affairs ministers will turn their attention to Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine, with insights from Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha. Ministers will also address the escalating situation in the Middle East, including Syria, and explore ways to further support the region's humanitarian needs. The meeting follows the 4th European Humanitarian Forum and sets the stage for continued discussions on EU global priorities, including security, defense, and humanitarian support.
We are going to have a very intense day. First, we have the Foreign Affairs Council for Defense, where we're going to discuss the implementation of the White Paper. And then we will have a Foreign Affairs Council where we have topics Ukraine, Syria, and the Middle East. So first on Ukraine, I think it is important, as we have all said, 27 of us, that there has to be full and unconditional ceasefire. Ukraine has already agreed to this 60 days or more than 60 days ago, and we have agreed that if Russia does not agree, what we saw yesterday, then we will put more pressure. So we will agree on the 17th package of sanctions today, but we continue on working on the next strong package of sanctions to put more pressure on Russia so that they would also want peace.
It's not about achieving 5% in between 1 year. The plan is to achieve that in between 5 to 7 years by increasing the defense budget by 0.2% per annum. So this is a totally different approach, first point. The second point is I rather prefer to talk about refilling the requirements of NATO in terms of capabilities and capacities. This is much more important and expensive enough. And if we do that in between the time we get for it, then it's in any aspect better and more worth the work than just talking and discussing about 3.5, 4 or 5%. I'm sure we won't be able to do all that with 3%, but it's a way we have to go, and the most important thing is to begin this way and to start really refilling the NATO requirements.
The European Commission launches its annual EU budget conference Tuesday under the slogan "From local action to global influence." The next long-term budget will power the EU's shared vision for the future in the context of growing geopolitical, economic, and social challenges. Now, the conference offers a forum for debate on how the EU budget can address specific needs of each EU member state. This includes discussions on EU competitiveness, the bloc's financial interests, and the modernization of the Union's budget revenues through public and private cooperation. The opening debate will be led by the European Commissioner for Budget, Anti-Fraud, and Public Administration, Piotr Serafin. Additionally, the list of speakers at the event includes the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola, and Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen. U.S. President Donald Trump commented on his recent phone call with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. According to Trump, he asked the Russian president to stop the war in Ukraine, and if not, the U.S. will step away from peace negotiations. Trump also said that Putin has had enough of the conflict and wants the war to end.
I said, when are we going to end this, Vladimir? I've known him for a long time now. I said, when are we going to end this bloodshed, this bloodbath? It's a bloodbath. But I said to him, we got to get going. And I did say also, if I thought that you couldn't do it, I'd step away, because what are you going to do? We don't have boots on the ground. We wouldn't have boots on the ground. But I did say, it's time, you got to stop this thing. And I believe he wants to stop. Look, I would be, I think, very able to tell whether or not he wanted to or what. I thought there was a very good chance, like a 50-50 chance, that he would say, I want to take the whole thing. I didn't know what he was going to say. And then they have a different kind of a problem. But I believe he wants to stop.
And responding to those comments, President Volodymyr Zelensky called on Trump to tighten sanctions against Russia if Moscow fails to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine. According to Zelensky, if there is no ceasefire, new EU sanctions will be introduced, which Zelensky says should be followed by a package of restrictions from the United States.
The European sanctions will be announced and will be strong. We have specific dates. We have certain agreements, I'm sure of it. And moreover, I would also like to reassure you that another package will follow. Should there be no ceasefire from the Russian side, there will be robust European sanctions. And with regard to the package from the US, I believe this is a different story. It would take for us to work thoroughly with the US in order for them, at a certain stage in time, to introduce the necessary sanctions. This will help us tremendously, both in the bank area and the economic area. I believe they will have the corresponding influence, and the US will decide whether Russia profits from this war or has to face serious economic challenges.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen took to X to thank Donald Trump for his debrief following his call with Putin, saying it was important that Washington remains engaged in the peace process.
Good call with President Donald Trump, together with President Emmanuel Macron, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and President Alex Stubb, Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and President Zelensky to get debriefed from his call with President Putin. I want to thank President Trump for his tireless efforts to bring a ceasefire to Ukraine. It's important that the U.S. stays engaged. We will continue to support Volodymyr Zelensky to achieve lasting peace in Ukraine.
European leaders, however, reacted with concern after Trump shared details of his recent call with Putin. According to the Financial Times, Trump's description of the call raised alarms among European officials who fear that he may be too willing to meet Putin's demands.
During the call, Putin outlined plans to work with Ukraine on future negotiations and a potential ceasefire, but did not back down from his core demands, including the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. FT reports that Trump, however, expressed optimism for immediate talks between Russia and Ukraine, but indicated that he might step back from mediating the conflict, suggesting the two sides must reach an agreement directly. This has raised concerns among European leaders, who fear Trump's approach may lead to concessions that could undermine Ukraine's interests in a rush to end the conflict. Both the EU and Ukraine have called for an immediate ceasefire, while Trump has been pressing for a 30-day truce. However, Putin has made it clear that he insists on meeting certain conditions before agreeing to any pause in fighting.
Russian drones attacked several regions of Ukraine, largely targeting civilian infrastructure. So far, the only known casualty of the strikes is a 64-year-old woman who was injured in an attack on Kherson. Now, the elderly woman was riding the bus along with other civilians as a drone fell near the vehicle. As stated by the city's military administration, the bus sustained considerable damage while the injured woman was transported to the local hospital for treatment. Russians also attacked the Dnipropetrovsk region, damaging businesses in the Silenovki district. The cities of Nikopol, Pokrovsk, and the villages of Mirove and Marhanets were also targeted. Also, overnight, Russian drones attacked the Bilopil settlement in the Sumy region. And local authorities said fire brigades managed to quickly extinguish the two resulting fires. However, according to preliminary information, no one was killed or injured in the attack. Lithuania initiated legal proceedings against Belarus at the International Court of Justice, alleging that Minsk is facilitating the smuggling of migrants into Lithuania. According to a statement issued by the court, Minsk is responsible for the rise in illegal border crossings by failing to take necessary measures to protect the border.
In their suit, officials in Vilnius are alleging that the smuggling of migrants through Belarus into Lithuania caused harm to the country's sovereignty, security and public order. Lithuanian authorities previously raised the issue with their Belarusian counterparts, However, Minsk refused to cooperate on curbing illegal migration. Vilnius has accused Belarusian officials of orchestrating the migration crisis since 2021 and demanded Minsk pay €120 million for facilitating the mass crossings.
In a move that's raised concerns over the future of international justice, Hungary's parliament has approved a bill to begin the country's withdrawal from the International Criminal Court. Now, Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government claims the court has become political, and the decision marks a significant shift in Hungary's stance on global institutions.
Hungary's withdrawal from the ICC will take a year to complete, making it the first European Union member state to leave the decades-old institution. The announcement came after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Hungary, where Orban refused to comply with the ICC arrest warrant against Netanyahu. The move has sparked concerns about the growing trend of rejection towards international organizations and the potential weakening of the ICC's authority.
President Donald Trump said he was surprised the public was not notified of Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis sooner. Trump floated the idea that the fact the disease was allowed to reach stage 4 reflects negatively on the doctor attending to Biden's health.
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there, and that's being proven to be a sad situation.
And now to Poland, where presidential frontrunner Rafał Trzaskowski addressed the crowd after securing the top spot in the first round of the Polish presidential election, saying, quote, "We have to stand clearly against radicalism, and we have to show that this is how we will win this election." He emphasized the need for strong cooperation among coalition parties during the election and in the future fight against the judicial reforms implemented by the Law and Justice Party.
This is precisely the first step, because we have to stand together, all of us from the October 15 coalition. We need to finish these reforms initiated 18 months ago. We need cooperation between the president and the government, because times are very difficult. And today, chaos is the last thing we need. We do not need conflict. We need cooperation. And this is the beginning of such cooperation. And for this, I would like to thank the Prime Minister and all my friends from the Polish People's Party. Today, we must stand together, because on the other side is the most radical politician Law and Justice has ever had. We have to stand clearly against radicalism, and we have to show that this is how we will win this election, if we stand together.
And on that, we end this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching, and stay with us for more news, features, and commentary here on TVP World.